CoT's base of operations is right here at thecounciloftime.com. CoT has no other outlet or venue. These are other folks who will rebroadcast, like DailyExcellence, who is authorized to rebroadcast by way of video.
Hello, everybody, on this wonderful rainy Saturday. Anybody else getting rain, or is it just me? I'm here. I made it a little late. Don't worry about it. Better late than never. Sometimes better never than to be there at all. How about that? We have rain on the East Coast. I think it's Shelby's fault. Rain all over the place. It's just one of those rainy days. Folks, you know what? Today is Saturday. And, of course, we have our Saturday discussions revealing things that are not normally revealed, or discussing things that are not normally discussed. And so we're going to go down a wormhole, not a big one, just a wormhole. Often, you guys know, I discuss subject matter that doesn't quite line up with everybody else's thinking processes. And then we find out that everybody did think about it beforehand, they just didn't discuss it. It's not always convenient to discuss some of the subjects I do, and so we set aside Saturdays to discuss things. Of course, everything we talk about does relate to biblical principles. We'll never exclude that from a conversation. I certainly don't like to, because the topic would become boring. But today we're going to discuss something at the heart of a few matters. And I tell you what, if you can, I know it's going to be difficult for some to conceptualize what I'll talk about. But if you can get this, your walk in Christ will be a little different than what it is even right now. It really will be. The first thing, I tell you what, often when you go through life, you analyze people and things and situations, and you see the changes in this reality. Yes, this reality. You see the advances with technology. We begin to see a culture spring up out of nowhere. Beliefs are changed and everything else. There's one constant, no matter what changes in this world, and it is death. What is death? Why is death? Why does death sound so bad in the first place? Well, it means that's the end of your quest, correct? But you all are Christians. So I hate to break the news to you that there is no death. There's no death for a person that's not a Christian. There's no such thing as death. Death would be the end of the matter here, the end of your walk. And this is what we're going to discuss partially, in part, today. Hopefully it can give you an insight, maybe something you didn't think about. It will empower some of you, and you'll have an aha moment. You will. You'll have an aha moment. And, of course, we're going to talk about time dilation, how we perceive time, and timelines. Anybody ever heard of that term before, timelines? But it's certainly going to affect your walk if you can hear this whole conversation. I'm going to be as simple and basic as possible, because I want you to see something today. I really do want you to see something. Something that you could carry on throughout any time of history you find yourself in. There is no such thing as death to us. Death, in fact, is the end of a matter. It's the end of our walk. It's a transition period when you cease to be in this form and you find yourself in another form. Do we know all of what's on the opposite side of this realm? No. No, we don't. We know about this realm, and there's a reason for that. And you have to ask yourself, God being the architect of everything, a masterful designer of all things. I mean, his work is perfect indeed. Why is he allowing us to step out this process with so many people involved? And by the way, why is so many people involved? See, a lot of times when you think about life, we're always concentrated on what the other guy does to us, right? That's the majority of our conversations and topics amongst ourselves, what somebody else does to us, and how to overcome what they do to us. Well, that may change at the end of this conversation. For some of you, absolutely will change. I am in hopes that some will have an aha moment. Every day we go through life, we have to concentrate on a great many things. We concentrate on the unknown. We concentrate on what people do to us, where we're going, where we have been. As Christians, believing in our Lord and Savior, we concentrate on what He wants us to do versus what we can do. And then we ask Him for the power to accomplish those things we think we cannot. This consumes the majority of our days. In fact, I would say the greater percentage of our day is not based in action, but it's based in thought. We do little action. We don't perform actions as much as you think, but we do contemplate issues of life. And the majority of our life is spent doing that. So, we're going to use our own imaginations to put some things in perspective. First thing I want you to do is take a moment and imagine that everybody around you is not real. Just imagine everybody that's around you is not real. You're the only real thing in this world. Everything around you is not real. It's not real. It doesn't matter in your walk. Imagine that. Nobody else around you is real. If you can imagine that you were in a world where you were the only real thing, this is your walk, nothing around you is real, you begin to see something different. This is looking at life from a different perspective. Now, we're using our imaginations. All of a sudden, if nothing around you is real, then any emotions that you had against anybody who ever did anything against you ever has no foundation. Right? Because they're not real. Let's say you're stuck in a simulation, a masterful simulation called life. Now, we're using our imagination, but nothing around you is real. If you were to go through life and everybody looked translucent to you and nobody was real, you would then say, well, nothing is real. But you're being gauged on how you live this experience. Now remember, nothing around you is real. People aren't real. They're not real. They just kind of give you company, kind of like your PC and telephone does every so often. Like a video game, or you reading the news or watching television. It's not real, but you're engaged. When you watch a movie, the movie itself is not real, but you're engaged, right? It can mess with your emotions. It can make you happy, it can make you sad, it can make you joyful, it can make you tearful, right? You're engaged. So let's say you're here. Everybody around you is not really real, but you're engaged, right? So you're walking through life and you begin to see they're not real. Something hits your mind. Wow, it doesn't matter what they do to me. So what does matter? And then you go deeper down this hole we're going into with our imaginations, and you find out there's someone watching you, someone assisting you, groups of people in your walk. They provide for you in very strange ways. They provide. You eat substance, that's your provision. You have shelter and all these other things. But you realize something very important. You had your focus all messed up. When you found out everybody really was not real, you kind of felt kind of sad. You said, wow, I was harboring all these things against them, when in fact, this story is about me. It's not about them because they're not real. I'm being gauged on how I walk in this life, and nobody else matters but me. Part of gauging the individual, you find out, is how they interact with everybody else. But the other people aren't real, right? You're being gauged on how you interact with everybody else. And so before you knew this, you were doing all sorts of things. You were just partying it up and everything else, right? Engaging the wrong way. And of course, your evaluation score didn't look too good. You were blaming people for this, that, and the other. And then one day you find out they're not real in this walk for you. You are the focus of this walk. You alone are the focus of this walk. Suddenly, you start changing the way you think. Because you'll say in your head, now remember, we're imagining this, you'll say in your head, well, if they're not real, what they've done against me does not matter. Because it's part of the test to see how I would react to that circumstance. Then you get the I messed up moment, right? You start thinking, oh, boy, I think I blew this whole thing. That's what you start thinking. I blew this whole thing. I'm being watched this whole time with assistance. But I'm being watched to see what I would do in every single case while I'm reacting. And I'm messing up. I'm expending this life that was given to me on things that are not real. I failed the test. That's what you'll conclude. But you get happy again because you say, wait a minute, this test is not over. It's still going. And you determine that as long as you live, you're living in a world where you are the center of focus and everything around you is somewhat of an illusion. Pieces strategically put in place to bring about situations in your life to see how you would react. And then you go deeper down this hole because you want to learn more about the test. And come to find out the test is very simple. The test gauges you on the truth of you. You begin to find out who you really are in these scenarios. Now, you're not really hurting anybody, right? No one's really hurting you. Because once this test is over, this material world is gone and another one is presented, the real world. But for some reason, some people thought this was the real world when it wasn't. It's only a test. Then we discover this character in the test who came before us and passed the test. In every situation and scenario given to him, he passed the test, and we say, who is this guy? And his name was Emmanuel. And you begin to analyze how he passed the test, right? How he walked this experience. And sure enough, he begins to talk about what's real and what's not real. What we should react to and what we shouldn't react to. What's permanent and what's temporary. In essence, he was telling us that in this walk, we're being defined for who we are. And who you are is how you react to a diverse set of situations. And the grand architect, the architect of everything, is who sent Emmanuel. And he sent Emmanuel so that we would have a way to pass this test. And so only in his steps or his way can we pass. Isn't that something? So we reevaluate our lives, realizing nobody is really real, and we're the targets of our own life. And everything everybody ever did against us was purposed that way to gauge our responses. And then something miraculous happens. We begin to self-identify. See, when we started this test, we thought we could do everything. But the truth was, you could do anything. Because there's no such thing as limitations. But it appeared that limitations were on you. And so some people, not having the strength to go beyond the test or the illusion, settled into the illusion and made themselves part of it and became stagnant. They gave in to the limitations, which, by the way, are an illusion, because nothing is real in the first place. And we begin to believe the people, or the illusionist people, the people that aren't really there, but we believe them anyway. We begin to take the instruction from the components in this illusion, and we listen to them, and we begin to act like them. Some people who started out in this test tried to become part of the illusion, but they always felt something was wrong. I try to be like them, but I just don't quite fit in. It's not working. It's like they magically get away with everything and I cannot. What is this all about? So you didn't become stagnant for long because you just simply could not be like the people who don't really exist. And you find yourself walking alone, that alone feeling. Now it's funny, in the walk, you're walking alone, you feel that way because you feel like everybody is distant from you. In a sense you are, because you're the test subject. You're the one being trained. You're the one walking through the simulation to gain wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. But there's a hidden, like a curtain around you, a field that you're not able to see into. Imagine that field fell for a minute. All of a sudden, you see a countless number of people. They're jotting things down. They're moving obstacles out of your way. They're bringing people into your life and forcing others out. I mean, they're just in absolute control of your life. They're doing all the moves in the background, and you've got to see it for just a fraction of a second. Well, when the veil goes back up, you're astounded. You're like, I just saw something I can't explain. Who were those people arranging everything in my life? Who were they? Who were they moving this out the way? But they were also setting obstacles in the way. And they were writing down everything that I did. Who are these people? And through the course of your study, when you picked up the Bible, you realized God has a countless number of employees, you could say, of sons, who are very interested in your individual life. In fact, they're so interested that they're constantly involved. Constantly. Maneuvering things, changing things, making sure that everything is being utilized so that you can make, or that your decisions and how you interact with everybody else is gauged. So you continue to walk through life and you're finally breaking free and you realize this is one big illusion. I'm living it. Okay, I got that. And so you've cast off everything anybody else did to you anyway, because you're like, well, they don't matter. This is my walk. This is my walk. I'm the one being gauged. They only exist and can only know me by the hand of the architect. But they don't really exist in my personal reality. In your reality, pieces come and go. Things work and don't work, but you find out all of it's being used to gauge how you handle every situation brought before you. So you begin to get all this, and you find out that the one who walked before you, called Emmanuel, not only did he set a course or demonstrate to you how it can be won, how this victory can be obtained, but he also came into your reality and did all the suffering for you so you wouldn't fall into those traps of suffering he did. Right? Now remember, we're imagining this. And then he did something. He was tortured, so you wouldn't have to be tortured. Let's just say he was tortured, so you wouldn't have to be tortured. Let's say he spilt his blood, because that blood, come to find out, is a common theme with God. I think you're wondering, what's that all about? What is this blood thing? I read about that. And this reality, in the past, with everybody else, there are instructions that I don't quite understand. God required the blood of a lamb for the remission of sins. Something had to die. Something perfect had to die to forgive me of every foul thing I did in this illusion. Why would he do that in the first place? So you begin to think a little more, and you find out he needs all of your iniquities removed. That's what the blood was for. Someone had to die for you. Someone in the past something had to die for them. Something perfect had to die for them to take place, to take the position or the place of their sin. Someone had to go through anguish, or something had to go through anguish for our sakes. And now you begin to get happy because it's starting to make sense. You're saying, wait a minute, all those things that I did against the people that don't really exist, all those things I did were taken away, but something had to pay the price for my sins. And then you go, wow, something took the price for my sins. Even back then, a price was paid. Then you find out Emmanuel did it for all time. Why? Because you found out it was a part of the architect who walked his creation to ensure you could pass this test. Because later you find out somebody entered this illusion you live in, something not so good, who's been trying to make you think this illusion is real and that passing is impossible. And every step of the way, every so often, he would slip into your life and nudge. He has a way to control the people involved in your life. Of course, they can't go too far because there's a host of heaven surrounding you all the time. You see, the workers of the architect are around you all the time. So he can't go too far. He has to ask permission. Hey, can I get in there and do this? He's a legalistic person, right? So now we have, in our imagination, in this wormhole that we just created, now we have you walking around in an illusion, and you're the one that matters. What you do in every given situation that's forming is being jotted down. We have a grand architect, we have the son of the architect, and we have his many sons who are performing work all around you all the time. We have a dark entity. Let's say his name is Beelzebub, Lucifer. Lucifer does not want you to pass this test because he failed from the beginning. And you know what happens when somebody fails, right? If they fail, they want you to fail too. But he has power to influence the illusionist people around you. You know, the ones that don't really exist. And so when one situation was forming, he just amplifies it. And the architect says, I knew he was going to do that because here's what's funny, even the dark entity didn't realize he too was being tested. He's in his own illusionist world. He didn't know that. But what he's doing is acting out who he really is. And so Emmanuel comes and says, well, I'm going to pardon their sins for all time. In other words, if they can accept the path before them, the way before them, nothing will be counted against them. Oh, and Lucifer, he didn't like that. He calls that cheating. So he's enraged, but he's not strong enough to go against any of the architect's plans. So you're going through this world and you realize nothing is really real, but what's being gauged is how you interact with the pieces. And a calm settles over you, a real calm. And you say, this is all under control. As you reach this point where you say, this is all under control and nothing was really real, but I'm the one being gauged on what I do to the pieces around me, not the opposite way around. It doesn't matter what they do to me. It matters how I handle every given situation. That's what's being watched. Then you start saying, well, I don't see any further point of this test. Can I go home? And you find yourself not going anywhere. And the architect says, okay, I'm going to give them the end of the test and see how they handle that. Just the information. I'm going to show them what the end of the test looks like. Because the architect realizes that if a person, because he made us, if we have no goal, right? If we have nothing to fight for, our life force begins to drop. We have to have him to believe in. We have to have something good to believe in. But something amazing happens. People began to notice how the architect loves his creation because of his son. People begin to do this. I begin to do this. So I'm walking along and nothing is real, but I say, you know, he really loves me to have fixed the ending of all of this for my sake. Because I have plenty of examples. Now I'm talking to the architect. I saw Lucifer fall. He's condemned, but you didn't condemn me. And he was one of the most beautiful, powerful angels, second only to you. But you're taking more interest in me than you are him. Then I began to perceive his love towards me. And because of that love, I found out, as we're walking through this illusion, he begins to open my eyes just a little bit, more and more every day, to see more and more of what the entire picture is about. I get to a point in life when my eyes are cracked open. I begin to see something amazing. You see, not only did I find out I'm the spectacle in the architect's eye, but I began to see countless worlds of people who are also the spectacle. And those countless numbers of people sharing in the same test I'm going through often meet one another in a strange way. And we begin to find others just like we are, walking through this experience. And the architect allows us to see one another, not visually, but almost to detect them. And we begin to talk. And we begin to encourage one another. Now our strength is combined because we're helping each other through this experience, which is amazing. And as I look around, I find out everybody's eyes are cracked at different levels. You know, some people are squinting. Some people's eyes are open more than others. But all of them are desperately trying to follow Emmanuel. And some are just looking at Emmanuel, having accepted him. And the architect, they're really scared to follow in his path. But because we can speak to one another, we can communicate to the other person what happens when they begin to step in the steps of Emmanuel. All of a sudden, everybody starts going in one direction. And we're passing tests left and right. We still have times where we relapse and think everything is real again. That's when we get depressed. And so somebody in the group has his eyes wide open. I mean, they're open. And this person begins to see this. And he discovers and begins to tell them, hey, when you relapse and you feel defeated, it's because you're accepting everything around you is real when it's not. When it's not real. And so that person is encouraged and they say, yep, you're right. Let me remember this as a test to see how I handle situations. And so we begin to have gatherings and we begin to talk about this experience. And we learn about forgiveness. And we begin to pinpoint one subject in particular. And the subject is this. We try to get other people to see that they are, in fact, the spectacle. And that nothing anybody ever did to them matters in their walk because it was planned that way to see what their reaction would be. We begin to talk. And we continue to talk. And while we're talking, God begins to reveal, the architect begins to reveal further information having to do with his prophecies about this experience we're walking in. So before we go to this next level, because we're going to continue this, this is imagination, guys and ladies. Before we continue, let's do a recap. We first imagined that we're walking in a world that's not real. And you're the only real thing in this world. And the true test has nothing to do with what anybody did against you, but how you handled each and every situation. We determined that we're surrounded by a host of observers, and they manipulate things around us according to the architect. We don't see them, but our eyes were cracked for a fraction of a second to know they're there, and then they were shut again. So we know they're planning everything around us. We further have discovered that Emmanuel was put here so that he could pay the price for everything we would ever do wrong. And then we discovered in that a true love that the architect has for his creation, because he wants his children, his sons and daughters, to pass this test. You see, he desperately and is determined that they pass this test. In fact, he made them just like he is. The only difference between his new children and him is that we wear flesh and we deal with things he designed. He can easily overcome everything because he created all things. He is the architect. We have to learn how to overcome them. We found out through fits of depression, when we feel defeated, it's because we're beginning to believe again that this illusion is real and that the test is not. And so we gather together in groups and we're reminded, hey, this is only a test. It's a test to see how we handle each and every situation that's being positioned or pulled or set up for us. So we know all this has been set up. It's being watched and recorded. It's being viewed. Each and every individual involved in the test are brothers and sisters we found who are going through this same test. the architect is handling on an individual basis, all elements of their life. We found out Lucifer failed the test, and he hates us for it, but he has no power to make us fail. But is often used. He weaves in and out of the rules of the architect. But the architect knows even that Lucifer is going through his own simulation, his own illusion. But he chose the wrong way and has no redemption. Only we do. Only we do. Why? Because we're the ones made in the image and likeness of the architect, God himself. After we discover all this, we reevaluate our lives and say, you know what, it doesn't matter what anybody ever did to me ever, because I'm the spectacle. I am the focus here with my architect, with the architect, and other people are going through their own simulations, and they are the spectacle to the architect. And somehow, he individually works with each and every person who is surrounded by a countless number of angels who are positioning and manipulating, changing, and assisting in their walk. Now, when we discover all this, our eyes are opened, and we begin to see a lot more. Some amazing things that we're going to talk about when I get back. Are you guys with me on this? Is this wormhole too deep? The wall's too slippery? The wall's too slippery. Because the hope is, if you can see what I'm talking about, your walk could change into pure truth. Not being given over to the illusion, but turn to pure truth. So I'm going to take a break. I'll be right back and we're going to continue. There's more elements to this wormhole, this illusion we're walking in. And we're going to discover that when we come back. We're going to take a short break. As soon as I find the right button. See, all too often in this illusion, we press the wrong buttons, and that's something. I'll be right back. Okay, everybody, we are back. Everybody with me so far in this trip down the wormhole? What a discovery, huh? What a thought process. I bet you guys are saying, what in the world thought process is this guy having? Where is this guy coming from? Some of you can relate to this. In the first part, one of the key things you need to remember is that you're the one being evaluated in your own life, not everybody else. Just you. Doesn't that change a lot of things in your life already? If you really think about this, does it not change a great many things in your life? So we're going on this journey and we're realizing these things. We're realizing we're communicating with others in the same walk. But all of it's a test. Then our eyes are opened even more. Even more, our eyes are opened. And we begin to handle situations differently, knowing that we're interacting with things that are not being evaluated in our lives, but we are. Then you say, why? Why are we being evaluated like this? And your eyes open up to a fact and a reality, a beautiful fact. And if I get too excited, right, just calm me down. One of the beautiful facts is this. The architect, the creator, made us in his image and after his likeness. So if we call him an architect and he did in fact create this whole thing, that's why we like to create. We share characteristics of our Creator. And Lucifer, he's mad. He is angry all the time. And he did not want Emmanuel here. He knew at the time that when our example came, the final one, who in him all of our faults and sins and everything else could be totally done away with, that made Lucifer angry. Because his mistakes are remembered. Yet through Emmanuel, ours are not. In fact, here's the funny part. What he has done is unforgivable. Well, he feels, why should we have a chance? But he was not made in the image and likeness of the architect. That's why he's after us so badly. He was made different than we are. We're made after the image and likeness of the architect. But he's condemned. But when Emmanuel came, everything that you could have been accused of was wiped away. It was erasers started going in the book of records, erasing out everything you've ever asked forgiveness for. It no longer exists. It was taken out of existence. It's not there anymore. Oh, that really made him mad. And so he set out in his illusion, determining and finding out that the only way he could keep any of the baby architects from making their way back to the Father is to make them give up. Now, how does he do this? How does he make a person give up? Oh, by the way, let me tell you about this simulation, just so you know Lucifer's player in here. So we have the architect that can see every single one of his children in every single scenario all the time. But see, Lucifer also has the ability to be engaged in everybody's lives all the time. Some people say, well, he can't be everywhere all the time. Let me explain something to you. In this simulation, we're the only ones that perceive time. Those in the heavens do not perceive time. Time is made for man. Time is made for us because this test will not last forever. It was not made for them. That's why Michael and Gabriel and all the other angels can do what they do. Lucifer accuses. In order to properly accuse, you must be able to traverse time, but time is not meant for them. It's meant for us. When it states God is omnipresent, that means he exists in the past, still. He exists now, still. He also exists in the future. Why? Because he's the architect. He's the one that also designed time. There is no time for him. We live in his creation. He does not live in our concepts. That's a fallacy many of us have. That's why we get confused in physics. That's one thing we cannot breach. God lives outside of time, but can reach into any time and do what he wills. Everything is his. Everything is his. Everything belongs to him. Everything exists by him. There'd be no Lucifer if he ever spoke a word and said, well, undo that. Satan would be, he'd be gone out of people's memories and everything. He is the architect, and he is the one who's responsible for everything. He's the one that placed the elements in this walk that we have so that we would be faced with a balance of good and evil, dark and light. He did that on purpose. Lucifer is always at the throne accusing the brethren. If he's always at the throne accusing the brethren and he can only be in one place at one time, how could he make a proper accusation of everybody? Because time does not exist for those in that realm. It exists for us. You know, there's a secret in this. When we read the instruction book called the Holy Bible, we see something in Revelation where Lucifer got really mad. It says that when he saw he was cast to the earth, he was enraged. You know what I think that means? And we can only speculate. I think that means he was booted out of the dimension where time does not exist. And all of a sudden he realizes he didn't have a lot of time left. You see, before he didn't have a concept of time. He's been here since the beginning. Surely if he had a concept of time, he would be tired of losing. But even his ability to continue to try, knowing he's going to lose, tells you there's something different with time happening there. Because nobody is that crazy to know that they're going to lose and continue to try unless they have no perception of time. Time is made for man. That's why it was written, and I know a lot of people, you can write me about this and holler at me later, but it says that with God a day is as 1,000 years and 1,000 years as a day. You know what that means? There is no time for him. It's not part of a calculation. It means there is no time. Some people have taken that too far, and they said, well, when he says 3.5 years, it actually means 3,500 years. No. It said a day is as 1,000 years, but 1,000 years is as a day. So the person that says, no, it means 3,500 years, I can say, no, it means 3.5 years. Or 3.5 days. How about that one? There is no time for God. Sometimes in this simulation, when our eyes are cracked open, we have to undo what we were taught by Lucifer, who wants us to be, he doesn't want us to know it's a simulation in the first place. He doesn't. He wants us to feel that the elements in our lives, that's the reality when it's not. You know what the reality is? It's where God is, and that's where he's trying to get us to. He created a whole other place for us. That's where he's trying to get us to. Not here. This is your test. Once a person can realize this is in fact their test, something happens in their brain. It starts fighting them instantly. You know why? Because your emotions will no longer justify what anybody else did to you, because the simulation says it doesn't matter what they do to you. It matters what you do to them. Uh-oh. See, that hits a soft spot. Now, as I said before, some people have their eyes cracked a little bit. Some are wide open, right? Those who have their eyeballs wide open, they're very careful in how they attempt to explain things, like ministers. Because they know what it can do to a person who is just, if you just woke up out of your sleep and you hear bells going off and lights are flashing, you would know what was happening. Had you been awake and it started, you would have had a concept of everything that's happening. But because you just woke up out of your sleep and you're being bombarded with lights and sounds and everything else, to you it's called chaos. But to the one that was awake, it's not called chaos. They can perceive the order in it and navigate through it. You being the one that just woke up, of course, there's no way to navigate through chaos because you can't make heads or tails of the situation. That's why God gave man time. He didn't bombard us all at once with all of this. But he gave us time so that we could begin to perceive every element and do it in truth. You see, the architect, he is truth. He doesn't have the same habits we have. He doesn't. Our habits and everything within us comes from what He created. It's not the opposite way around. That's why me, if my eyes were wide open, would never dictate anything of the Creator. If I saw where He was, I still can do that. There's no way for me to see the expanse of the architect. The only part of Him I'll ever know is what He allows me to see, not what I can figure out. But what, you see, I found out in this simulation, you can attempt to figure out everything. And then you find yourself empty in knowledge. So, the test, come to find out, as with most tests, identifies the individual taking the test. It identifies a lot. Kind of like an immigrant taking a test to see if they can be a citizen of a country. There are requirements. Well, guess what? There are requirements to being a son or daughter of the Creator of all things. There is a requirement. Funny enough, everybody misses that requirement. It's a very easy one, but it's very difficult from the onset. It's an argument that all of us have from the onset. You know what we say? I can't see God. Now, in our wormhole, let's just say one of the requirements was to see God. That was the requirement, to see it. But when we begin, that's the first thing we say. We can't see God. Then He begins to teach us how to see Him. And it's funny how He teaches us how to see Him. While we now know that this test gauges what we do to other people, we also have discovered that is a test of character. You see, it's a test of something that a man cannot give you. It's the test of what's within you. Something within all of us is being brought to the surface by all the situations we're exposed to. Surely, a child of the Creator has to have the traits of the Creator. He knows this. And in order to exercise the proper traits, we have to identify and verify these traits are in the Creator. But the first thing we say when we hit the simulation, I can't see God. I can only see the things around me. And here's what has happened. We began thinking that the things around us defined us, when in fact, they didn't define us. They were used as a test to bring something out of us. Satan doesn't like this either, because the end results of this test are fixed. Satan doesn't like it. Who gives a test that's already fixed? But there's still a qualification. As we began to stroll through our experiences, He put a piece of Him within us so that we could identify, so that we could see Him. That's something He put within us. It's called the Holy Spirit. Now, contrary to most people who believe that people don't have the Holy Spirit, who believe in the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, there's no way you could ever choose Emmanuel if you can never see Him. The reason why you can see Him is because a piece of your Creator resides within you. And it led you to Emmanuel. And when you found Emmanuel, it began to unlock that piece of the architect within you. And as you identify with the Creator more and more, it grows inside of you. In other words, it can stretch out. See, when you begin, think of yourself as a soda can or a bottle of water, and you're full to the rim. You're full to the rim of this experience. And there's really no room for anything else in the water bottle. If you put anything else in the water bottle, it'll burst. As we walk through life, and the reality seems to break down, you're dripping that water, this reality out all over the place. You're emptying yourself. That was on purpose too. And then that tiny piece of the Creator that's within you has more room to function and operate. You see, the more of the water you pour out, the more air that enters the bottle. Let's call that air the Creator. In other words, the more you realize that this is not reality, the more of God you're going to experience in your walk. Because every time we fill ourselves up with this reality, we go into depression, we feel defeated and everything else. Because we're in fact believing that this is it. And there's nothing else. So as we go through this experience, we stumble across something called prophecy. Everybody knows about prophecy, right? We stumble across prophecy. What is prophecy? People look at prophecy and they try to figure it out and everything else. In their souls, they know it's important. But for the life of us, it's ambiguous at best, sometimes very confusing. And so let's take me, for example. In my wormhole, my experience, I'm walking through life and I've dumped out quite a bit. But I found out something very curious. Every time I dump out, I intake more of him, of the architect. And every time I take in more of the architect, what he was saying to me becomes clearer and clearer and clearer. Which led me to prophecy, because I want to know, and everybody wants to know, how this thing ends. Everybody wants to know, when is the end of the test? We know it's a test. We began to overcome and realize this is not our reality. This is not our permanent home. We're being gauged by how we respond to the elements in this reality. It doesn't matter what the elements do to me. It matters what I do to them. So we begin to realize this, and we begin to say, Lord, well, when's the architect going to end this test? Then we stumble across prophecy. And wouldn't you know it, the architect put signs in the very time he created. He put different signs in the time he created. I mean different signs. And because he knows we don't comprehend his full language, he speaks to us as children. But he does it in a way where we can only figure it out so long as we're searching for him. You see, here's one of the things that people are beginning to discover. Nothing's unlocked to the individual that's not looking for it. Boy, that's a biggie. In other words, if you're not looking for something, you won't find it. That sounds familiar. Anyway, he set this up like that. And he knows, he can see our behaviors of the past, right? Because when we really want something, we don't care what gets in the way. We're going to get it. Don't believe me? Have a sale at a store and watch how many people go in that store. It's the same scenario. But in this realm, because everything is not real in the first place and we're being gauged, he's also gauging how much time we spend looking for him. And at first we said, well, that's a daunting journey. I know none of this is real. I know it's temporary. I know what you're trying to do, but that's where do I start? And he already knew the answer to that question. before he finished, the architect, right? Before he finished his creation. That small piece of him grows in us when we get tired of this reality. And every time we get tired and think we can't take another step, it bubbles up. And we begin to see things in prophecy. And it gets us excited again. And when we get excited, it energizes us because, in fact, that excitement didn't come from the world, but it came directly from him. Why? Because we believe in what he's saying. He didn't give us instant belief all at once. Through prophecy, he enhances that faith within us. He's been doing this from the beginning, through his prophecies. You see, when we strive for something and we have a small result, we get excited. It makes us work harder to get the other results. That's how we work. Prophecy has been the same way. We reach a milestone. We know that we have reached that milestone, which gives us just enough faith to reach the other milestone. But prior to knowing this, that he charges us up at certain points in our lives. Some of us would fall prey to this illusion and begin to feel hopeless, like we're stuck here. In other words, we put more water back in our bottles, which squeezes out the air being that life-giving substance, which is him. So he works with us on this individual basis because the last thing he wants to do is lose any of us. And we begin to venture in his prophecies. And in his prophecies, we discover something else. We discover all the components involved in the test. But it's only when we realize that we're in fact living in a test that we can see the components of the test. Only when we understand that we're the ones being gauged and nobody else. We're being gauged on how we respond to everybody else to form our character to see if we're like our Father or not. What he told us would happen in the future begins to become our reality. And we begin to step closer to him, locking into the promises he laid before us. Not the promises of goodness for our lives, but the promise that the test is about to be over. This is where the enemy fights. Oh, he fights viciously. He starts to send agents out in the simulation to lure you back into his stuff. And he wants to tell you things like, you can't make it. He voids Emmanuel. He wants you to focus on the elements that did anything to you, knowing that's not part of the evaluation. He wants you to focus on everything that caused him to fall in the first place. He wants you to place yourself in this illusion as the highest illusion, but God won't let him. He's been trying desperately to make you part of the illusion, to make you think that you yourselves are an illusion through his agents. But God won't let him do it. And when you know it, at the same time certain markers are given because God is warning us what will happen to those who have been partakers in this wormhole we're going down. He tells us exactly what they're going to do so that we can be aware of it. He's saying these elements of the illusion are going to begin to do this, that, and the other at these specific times. Be aware. He wants us aware because that's the most difficult part of the test. But he always tells us something strange, doesn't he? He says, don't fear. Don't fear. All this stuff is coming, but don't fear. Don't be afraid. All this stuff is coming, don't be afraid. You begin to say, well, Why would the architect tell me not to be afraid of fearful things that are coming? Anyway, why would he say that? Don't be afraid. And then it hits you. Ah, that's right. There is no death. There is no death. Then it hits you again. Oh, that's right. It's not real in the first place. And it hits you again. Oh, that's right. He wants to see my reaction during this time. And then we discover there's going to be a separation at the very end of those who belong to Him, who have developed His characteristics through the course of their life, and those that don't. Even some of those who walked in the path of Emmanuel will not be His. You know, in the Bible, when it says they did everything in His name and did everything that they knew what was required, He told them, depart from me, you iniquity. Depart from me, you worker of iniquity. I never knew you. Then you begin to say, wow, worker of iniquity. So a worker of iniquity cannot go home? Because that's essentially what He said. Workers of iniquity cannot go home. Then it hits you again. Uh-oh. I need to remember that this illusion designed for me in my personal walk, I must never become a part of this illusion. I mustn't listen to Satan because he's trying to make me part of this illusion. I'm not here to be a part of this illusion. I'm here to be tested in this walk so that I can build character and be identified by Him. Because He said, workers of iniquity, He didn't know them. Are you kidding? They have no identity with Him. A worker of iniquity has no identity with Him. Which means the architect is only going to know his children. No one who is a worker of iniquity, he won't know them. You see, the danger symbol came up. Boing. That means if I succumb to this illusion, I will then be part of this illusion. And surely, this illusion is iniquity set up all around me, all the time. In other words, I'll become the agent of Lucifer who can never be redeemed. And all of my life would have been for naught. Nothing. Then you want to know, how do I not be a worker of iniquity? And I hit you again. All I need to do is remember this. It doesn't matter what the elements of this illusion do to me, but it always matters what I do to them. That's how I avoid becoming a worker of iniquity. Is to always do good to them that hate me, to love my enemies, to expect the elements to come against me, to see what I would do in any given situation. I must remember Emmanuel. He paid the price for everything I would ever do wrong. And so I must finish what the architect placed me here to graduate from. And when you know it in the Word, it says, come out of her, my people. Because this simulation I'm talking about will all be done away with. Every element in your own personal simulation is going to be done away with. Only those elements or the people you shared the simulation with who are going through their own, only those who never became a worker of iniquity will be counted as children, true children of the architect that designed it all. those who lose their identity by rejecting that small piece of the architect in them and become part of this illusion won't even exist anymore in the end. But to those who do make it, you're going to find out that this illusion only took a fraction of time. And it was simply to put a name tag on you, to put a robe on you that says you are a child of the architect. And when you discover that that's what all of this is about, and that you're being raised to develop the character of the architect, it begins to place quite a few things in perspective. Certainly in the Word of God. Even if we imagine this is the way it was, when you go back into the Word of God, things start to make sense. The impossible things Jesus said, they begin to make sense. When he was talking about faith, how you had to believe something to happen, well, that's the way God responds, is through faith. And through faith, he dispatches things to alter the simulation you now occupy. With your forgiveness, you essentially free yourself of being bound to the illusion. You see, the object is not to become a worker of iniquity. Many of us, we were workers of iniquity, but through us gaining our character, understanding the language of the architect, having more of him in us, we identify more and more with the origins of the entire thing. Take me, for instance. I'm never concerned as to what a person does against me. I understand that some emotions are from the simulation. I'm not concerned what people do to me. I'm concerned how I handle every situation. And when I see the rest of the people involved in the simulation on a massive scale, I want them to know they can be identified with the Creator too, because in the end, anything that was not His is not going to be remembered at all by anybody who is His. Once we wake up from this, we can then say we're in a real place. This is why things of this illusion I can't be a part of. How could you be a part of an illusion? And wouldn't you know it, in the Bible it says God will give them over to a strong delusion that they would believe a lie. You know what they're going to believe? That this is it. Aren't they believing that already? Aren't they believing the dark one who manipulates portions of this illusion and has them going back and forth, up and down and everywhere else? And he causes them to deny the architect himself. In other words, they live within an illusion that's an illusion. They've lost the ability to identify with reality. They can't see it because your eyes must be open. The reality is you're not here by yourself, but you're surrounded continuously. The reality is you are the spectacle in your walk. The reality is it doesn't matter what the other elements do to you. You're the one, you're the spectacle, and it matters and is recorded of what you do to them. It matters when you help your brother and sister once your eyes are opened in truth, so that you can assist them get through this test. When you help another in truth, when you convey that type of love, that covers a multitude of sin within itself. because you begin an instant repair in somebody's life. There are so many things when we began we thought were real and they counted. But in the end, we're going to find out the only thing that counted was our handling in walking in the path of Emmanuel, our handling of every situation according to the steps of Emmanuel. That's what's going to matter. You see, I understand some people not only have their eyes shut, but they put glasses on. They don't want to know anything other than the simulation. I know this, but I know some are desperately trying to open their eyes up. And I know that they're emptying out the world of themselves every single day, and more of the Creator is entering in. I know they're out there. I know they're desperately trying. But I know something a lot of them don't know. That this entire simulation is fixed. And they have the advantage. I know that Lucifer is mad because they have the advantage. I know that every word Emmanuel said was absolutely true. And that every thought that comes against the words of Emmanuel are from this world of illusion, which desires to make you be a part of the illusion. Because the illusion is going to be forgotten. All elements of the illusion are going to fade away, and they won't exist. And the only thing that will exist are the architect's children in a brand new creation. That I do know. I know it's early, it's 4:40. But you know what? I have hopes. This caused a different type of thinking within someone here. That it helped to put things in perspective. Because if I told you that imaginary world we just entered was real, if I told you it's a real scenario, would you apply it? Maybe that's why people bounce in and out of your life and you never see them again. Maybe that's why sometimes you notice the strange and never see it again. It's because you're never alone here. Never. You are the architect's children. You have an adversary who does not want you to be. He doesn't want you to pass this test, but he's only your adversary. This fight has been fixed. It's been fixed. A surrender means you believe in the steps of Emmanuel, the example placed before you. Through him, we can also finish this race. All wrongs are righted, which is to say they're forgotten. But remember, it's not what everybody does to you. That's also fixed. Nothing is done to you illegally, but everything is carefully orchestrated to find out your true character, which is what you will do in response. That's the measure of true character. That is the truth, the identification that's being pulled out of all of us. If we can fix our eyes on the architect who is God the Father, his Son, Jesus of Nazareth, who is Emmanuel, utilizing and not resisting the Holy Spirit, which is to empty out of the world those things of the world that are within you, pour them out. If we can walk in the Spirit, which is in fact the reality, and not live in the flesh, which is in fact the illusion, we do well. We do well. And it's all fixed anyway. That's why time was given for mankind. That's why no one knows when Jesus is coming back. We are not here to govern or dictate the things of God, but to finish our respective races, which is this simulation, fighting the good fight of faith. And you have to fight to believe and never be drawn into this illusion. This is why it was written, come out of her, my people, that you do not partake of her plagues. And in the scheme of all things, your life here is only a fraction of time. If you think of it like the way I just presented it, the wormhole way, you may find yourself not being as tired as you thought, not being as weary as you thought. So I hope it helped someone. I did hope it helped someone. I hope it did. Hope it can open your eyes to the true nature of things. And next time you read Scripture, if you can draw upon these things, you can fit them in proper perspective. Go forward without limitations, understanding what everything is. That is my hope. We're going to take another break. I'll be back briefly to update everybody on this illusion that we live in. I'll be right back. Okay, everybody, I am back. Hey, did that help anybody today on this rainy day in the simulation, huh? This rainy day. See, and I was going to make it short, but it kind of extended itself, so I was going to go in some other directions. But you know what? Right when I began to say how it was raining, that did hit. And so, of course, me being me, it just popped out. How about that? But I hope it helped someone today. You know, because I really don't look at life the way other people do. I don't. And we know things are going to take place and happen. But understand it's orchestrated this way. The prophecies are real. And as we go deeper and deeper into some prophecies, now you can see why there's no room for fear. Because you're the spectacle. You're the one being gauged. You're the one being gauged. We do have, you know what, that dream? Oh, by the way, these dreams and visions that people are having, don't you two think they're in fact helpers for us? They help us to understand what's happening. That's why God really gives them, so He can talk. You know, the Lord will send a person into a deep sleep to communicate things to the man. Do you know why? If you look in the book of Job, a man goes in a deep sleep, absent emotions, and the Lord can communicate to the person. Your emotions can stop you from hearing from the Lord. It's in the book of Job. I think everybody should take a look at that. It's in the book of Job. And if He has to send a man into a deep sleep to talk to them directly so that they can get it, that means emotions can get in your way. That means what we have within us, if it's filled full of the world, there's no room for God. That's why He told us to pray without ceasing. Men ought always pray. Have you noticed that when we don't pray, when we're not thinking about those things of the Lord, we instantly, confusion steps in and we begin to drift. So I hope it helped someone. Mike, you ought to reset the audio so that can be, that can be separate from this, just in case someone wants to hear it again. So we can keep that separate. I really am strange, huh? Go ahead and say it. Yep, he's a strange one. I am strange. I really don't look at life like most people. I see it as both precious. I really do see people as precious. I'm telling you, I have been in positions, and this is not to gloat or to edify myself by any means, but it edifies the Lord and what He has done, what He can do with you. The same things He does with me, not the lumps part, but whatever He does for me, He can do for you. I've been in lots of situations where grown men are crying and lots are wounded, yet there was still praise within me. I could still see the beauty of what He was doing. Now, how strange is that? That's when you know. That's when you know you have, something has changed. And I didn't change myself. I'll tell you guys, I'll share something with you guys. When I was young, and I've done this a few times, you see, I did not want my own will. I didn't want to have my own will. I'm sure that some of you have the same thing, but I went a step further. I did. I went a step further. I laid down everything that I wanted and refused to do anything until I heard from Him. In a sense, I wrestled with an angel until I got my answer. I laid down everything I wanted, everything I aspired to be, to get, to obtain, to do, and everything. I laid it down, and I refused to do anything until I got my answer. I really did. And of course, the Lord said He's not going to take away my will. But He opened up the path of His will before me. And basically, He encouraged me to walk in His path. While walking in His path, I did experience absolute freedom and a multitude of gifts that are necessary to walk in His path. The gifts are nothing to brag about or anything else. They're necessary. Very necessary. When you're walking in the Spirit, your eyes open up a lot. They open up a lot. And as they open up, your flesh doesn't know how to respond to everything. And so it takes the giftings and the power of the Lord to continue to walk in His path. That's why He gave us those gifts. And when somebody else is trying to aspire to walk in that path, they're drawn to the healing, to the repair. Notice they searched out Jesus, right? Jesus was walking, they wanted to get to Him. Listen, people will try to get to His path as soon as they see it, in truth. And I know that the Lord is preparing a great many of you to walk His steps, with the giftings, and with everything that goes with it, so that the people can have their eyes opened. Because in the end, He's going to open up the eyes of everybody so they can see. That's what the whole point is. It's not about me as the individual. It's not about what I know or what I don't know. It's about the path of Jesus. And it's beautiful. That's why it doesn't matter to me what comes and what does not come. What matters to me is my daily engagement with the many elements that the Lord has placed in front of me. But I want to go through life in His path, and so I consider Him with a great many things that I do. See, in a sense, I'm very simple. I realized a long time ago, I don't have the intellect to get through this life with my own devices. I can't rely on my own devices. My own devices, they're not formed yet. My own devices are inherently flawed. And so I need to walk in His path, because I can see that love. I can see that this entire thing is fixed. That's why I appreciate all of you. That's why you can never offend me. Even when you think you have, you can't. It's impossible You know, I found out it's impossible to offend me. Not because there's nothing to be offended inside of me, but you can't do it. You can't do it because I'm not looking to be offended. I'm not looking for vindication. I'm not looking for a pat on the back. I'm somewhat fixated on everyone completing their individual walks. And when you do that, you find yourself, you too can be offended. You can't even be emotionally compromised. And yes, the flesh cuts up and acts up and everything else, and sometimes it wants to say, oh, I'm tired, and you start sinking, and that's the very moment I begin to recall the story of Jesus Christ. I'll go back to the New Testament. That's my secret weapon. Sometimes when I'm laying down, I will relive what I read in the New Testament. And I am charged up like a lithium battery that never dies. It charges me up because the example is always before me. That example gives me life. It keeps me going. It lifts me up when I'm about to fall down. It gives me hope in a hopeless situation. You see, I really do believe. I believe what Emmanuel did. I believe in Jesus of Nazareth. And I certainly believe in his Father, God Almighty, the architect of all things. And I know all that exists is his and his alone. Both demons and angels, Lucifer and us, all are his. And nothing is mine. But there is one thing I do have. I do have his love. That I can claim for myself. And in his love is healing. In his love is salvation. In his love is a gift that nothing in existence could ever provide me. And in that I stay. That's my secret place. That's my place that Lucifer can never touch. It's not in the realm of this reality or this illusion. What is mine resides within the architect himself. And there's no way Satan can diminish that, take it away. He can't even dim the light that comes from that. And I know he hates me for it. I know that certain things I say make the flesh of some tingle, makes them squirm. And I know that happens. I know we do that to each other. But God is who I'm fixated on. His Son is who I delight in. He and his Son I do delight in. And I've found that the more I fixate on him, the more of the illusion I see as an illusion. And then reality opens up because I can see beyond the sight that we're born with. And I know that you too can see beyond the sight that you were born with. You can already feel it. All you have to do is open your eyes on a daily basis by choosing each day who you're going to serve. By locking on to the steps of Emmanuel, walking in that path. That is, in fact, our path. I found out God's Word is not complicated at all. The only complications in life that we will ever have are the words of Satan, who whispers and sends agents out to complicate the simplicity of what the Lord has us here to do in the first place, because we're all being qualified to be sons and daughters of the architect of all things. That's why I'm not getting distracted in this time. As the prophecies begin to unfold and you're seeing it, as God reveals things of prophecy through dreams and visions, he arms us with an ability to see in the future. Do you not know that all these psychics have been cheated They've been cheated. It's not a real power. It's a parlor trick they have. Anybody can get knowledge from the dark side to tell somebody about what's happening in their life or what has happened in their life. The accuser knows everything that happened in your life. He does. That's how he accuses you. But the Lord can show us His plan in the future. He can show us the direction our lives are going. He can show us the tomorrow because He, in fact, inhabits our tomorrows. We have an awesome architect who not only inhabits the area and the space we live in now, but He's also sitting at the place of our victory. He has seen our victory. That's why He can promise a victory. We're the ones living with the limitations of time, not Him. He's been at the end of the whole matter. He designed time. He has already witnessed our victory. He has already witnessed His Son coming to get us. He knows exactly how things are going to happen. He knows how many bugs are going to be on the planet during that time. Why? Because He's the architect. He designed everything. He is the future, the now, and the past, all at one time. He is the perfect judge. That's why He knows the very count of hairs on your head. And if He knows the count of hairs on your head, He's paying close attention to you, and so is the host of heaven. The entire host of heaven sees you as a spectacle. They are interested in you. They serve you. They are here for you. Why are they here for you? So that you can finish in the victory. He's already witnessed you coming to Him. He's already seen you. He saw the smile on your face coming to Him. He saw your transformation in the end. He saw everything. Everything has already been fixed. And He handed us a choice. Like a true father, true honest father would hand his children a choice. To say, if you want this, you are destined to be my son or daughter. But if you want this, all I ask you to do is identify with me, your dad. Finish this race like I would finish this race. What He would do is already in you via the Holy Spirit. That is awesome. That makes me want to just, I would tear up my own desk if I get too excited. He fixed this entire thing. As we see prophecy unfold, all of us would do well to remember why we're here in the first place and the plan of the architect for our lives, so that you too can understand it's all for you to identify with Him. And of all the things in the Bible, there's one thing that always sticks out to me. He will not know the workers of iniquity. They are the ones who will not be His sons or daughters. But you will. And you know what Satan's been doing all this time through everything he does with these elements of the illusion? He's been trying to make you be an agent of His, to pass on iniquity. Now, how does He pass on iniquity from one person to the other? He does that via our emotions. Can you see that now? How does He make one an agent? By your emotions. When emotions are stirred, we often do iniquitous things. That's how. And our emotions are only stirred because we begin to believe that this illusion is real in the first place. But it's not. And because you're still here, you've not been given over. Everything you've ever done has already been washed in the blood of Emmanuel. He paid the price. Even for the worst things you could ever do, He's already paid the price. Walk in that. Finish this race. Understand that when things come, they must come. It's part of the process. Part of the process. But your victory has been established, and you're the only person that can say, yes, I'll take that victory. I'll take it. If these words penetrated anything in you, I have a greater hope that a lot more of us are going to make it, finish this race. That is my primary concern, that we finish this race. A gift to me would be to see you entering into the gates of the kingdom to come. I already know that you will do the impossible. What everybody in the illusion, the components in this illusion, say is impossible is never impossible for me. It's never impossible for me because I'm not like the illusion I live in, and neither are you. You're not like the illusion. You're the real component of your walk. Everything around you is the illusion. Illusions change. But we can help each other. We can. We can continue to help each other, each and every one of you. And I can tell you now, I love you to pieces. I can't stress that enough. You know, there's a real love, and there's man's definition of love. What I experience on a daily basis is real love, not man's definition of love. But the same love the Father lays, He just showers me with His love. And I can see that every time I think about Emmanuel. I'm filled up full of His love, and it pours out all over everybody else. That's what happens. He knows that I desire to never have that fountain cut away from me. And so He never cuts it away from me. He overfills me most days, which can make you do the impossible. You know, you can stand up in a disaster and encourage people. You can be wounded yourself and still encourage people. It's amazing what the power of God's love can do. Now, what do you think would happen? That's just the power of His love. What do you think is going to happen when the full extent of His power shines upon you for eternity? We can only imagine that because we have no concept. I, for one, desire to see people enter into that light, to that everlasting light and warmth and love, and a host of other things that we have no concept for. I hope this did help someone. I really did. And yes, we are seeing prophecy unfold. It's going to go faster and faster, but guess what? That makes me try harder and harder to do the work of the Lord. You see, as prophecy speeds up, so will I. As darkness comes into this world, so will the brightness come out of all of us. Love will invade your home. You will begin to pour out in other people. You will be the warmth in a very cold world. Why? Because you're the children of the architect. Folks, I'm going to leave you at that. I enjoyed this talk today. I sincerely hope it gave a perspective that you can capture. I can help you see. And it's very simple. But then again, most things with the Lord are very simple. We just need to learn how to see Him. And we will, because our eyes are opening. God bless each and every one of you. Listen, that same love I have for you, have for one another. Keep it. Keep it. Remember, you're the spectacle in this realm of illusion. You are. And it matters what you do, how you respond to situations. It never matters how the elements interact with you, but how you interact with them. Keep that in your mind, and remember that the path is the path of Emmanuel. Folks, I love you. I got to run. God be with each and every one of you. We're getting close. We're getting close. I can feel it. We're getting close. I do love you. Love each other. Take care of one another. Take good care of one another. You're the only one like you in existence, but you do have brothers and sisters. So care for one another as much as you're able to. And the impossible is only impossible to the illusion, not to you. Because with the architect, all things are possible for you. Folks, I love you. I got to go. God bless each and every one of you. Stay tuned. I believe Pastor Brent is coming up, or one of the pastors is coming up. FE will let me know. God bless each and every one of you.